Let us pray. Gracious, loving Father, be with us as we enter into your word. Give us the understandings that we need. Help us to see the truth, nothing but the truth. The light placed upon our hearts, loving Father, and help us to see that the final events that take place, there are signs of it, and we need to get prepared quickly. These verses we ask of you, Lord, and thank you for hearing us and giving us your Holy Spirit right now, through Christ our Savior. Amen. Amen. Okay, first shot. Turn with me to Revelation chapter 13. Verse 16 and verse 17. First, Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 and verse 17. Now, if anybody doesn't have a Bible, please let them look into yours. If they don't know where to find the scripture, please help them to find it. So what we are looking at here in these two verses, what will we be looking at here in these two verses? In these two verses, we are looking at the final communion global activity that God hates. Let me talk again. Listen to me again. In these verses here, we will be reading the final global activity we call communion that God hates. The final global activity. There is to be a final communion global activity. And God hates that global activity. We commonly call it the mark of the beast. Let's start here and let's read verse 16. Quoted. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark or the name of the beast or the what? Number of his name. Notice this. This prophecy here clearly tells us the final thing that God shows he's against, that he hates. You want to sum it up in a nutshell, the mark of the beast. So watch me. The final communion global activity. In other words, it is a global activity. It is communism because, like communism, it takes away your rights and your freedom. But it is religion. So here you have religion being enforced. But the religion that is being enforced takes away your what? Your rights and your freedom. So in harmony with what communism does, remember, communism in the Communist Manifesto says, I quote, but communism abolishes all what? So in other words, they abolish all your rights, they abolish all your what? Freedom. So communism is supposed to be known as this. So communism takes away rights and freedom. But what if they take away rights and freedoms and they enforce religion upon you? That's why we call it what? Communism. And it will be a global activity. So this is the final global activity. Final communism global activity that God hates. It is called Mark of the Beast legislation. Because the mark of the beast is to be legislated for every country to follow. So they call it Mark of the Beast legislation. Now let's just look at this a little more. So much God hates this mark of the beast that the third angel's message, turn to Revelation 14, the next chapter, and we will read from verse 9 to verse 11. So much God hates this mark of the beast. You would observe the extent of wrath he expresses against it. Now, if you have your God expressing such terrible wrath against the mark of the beast, then he must hate it with a passion. What do you say? Let's see the hate. Verse 9 to verse 11. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his what? Image, and receive what? His mark in his what? Forehead, or where? In his hand, the same shall drink of the what? The wine of the what? Wrath of God, which is poured out with how? Without mixture into the cup of his what? Indignation, which means holy wrath. And he shall be tormented with what? Fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever. And they have what? No rest. How long? Day or night. Who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth what? The mark of his name. Did you see that? Look at that expression of wrath. An expression of wrath that tells us it is wrath unmingled with mercy. Now sometimes your child do something wrong and you show your child wrath, but there is mercy because the wrath is to correct the child. By that time no more corrections are taking place, only destruction. So you have unmingled wrath. And the wrath tells them that during the year of the plagues, they have no rest what? Day or night. So while the wrath of God is following the plagues, they have no rest what? Day or night. And then the Bible draws an image from the wrath that fell upon Sodom and Gomorrah. And said the smoke of their torment ascended up what? Forever and ever. Not that you will find smoke literally going up forever and ever. But it is a phrase taken from how Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. When Abraham went and looked, he saw thick smoke like a furnace just ascending up. And that becomes a symbol of the wrath of God unmingled with mercy. So the Bible uses the worst kind of imagery to show how much God hates the mark of the beast. Do you get that clear? Yes. Now if God can show that he hated so much, you should hate it so much too. Amen. Amen, brother? Amen. If God says he hates it so much, you should hate the mark of the beast so much too. But you will say, why should I hate that so much? What does it mean to me that I should hate it? We know one thing for sure, it makes people worship the beast and his image. We know that for sure. But here is what? God hates that so much. So much God hates that the 7 last plagues, the wrath of God, guess who it fall upon? All those who cooperate and receive the mark of the beast. That's whom the wrath of God of the 7 last plagues follow. Look at chapter 16. Revelation chapter 16. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. We read, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the what? Upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth. And there fell a what? Noisome, grievous sore upon whom? Which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image. Did you see that? So when you have the plagues falling, the plagues fall upon those who receive the mark of the beast. And the plagues are identified as the what? Wrath of God. But if you look at chapter 18 verse 4, here is what the Bible tells you to escape the wrath. Listen to me. 18:4. 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her womb, that you be not what? Partakers of her sins, and what? You receive not of her praise. So apparently, this mark of the beast, listen to me, embraces every evil sin you could take about. And the Bible says, come out of Babylon, that you would not partake of her sins, and you receive not of her plagues. Because the plagues fall upon those who receive the mark of the beast. So you are here in Trinidad, and you have to ask yourself the question, if I find out what the mark of the beast is all about, I am supposed to hate it as something that causes sins. And I'm supposed to hate it like God hates it, because the plagues that will destroy the earth, remember what is the seventh plague? A global earthquake that caused whole populated islands to sink, the surface of the earth to break up, plus a terrible hail, 50 pounds that wreck buildings and kill people. Remember we are told those are the plagues also. And these plagues fall upon those who receive the mark of the beast. So you're supposed to hate what? The mark of the beast. Did you see that now again, brother? Did you see that? Watch this again. Even those who are responsible for propagating the mark of the beast, God shows how we hate what they do, so he's going to put retribution upon them. Look at Revelation 19, verse 20. This is wrong. Notice what we are told. And the beast was taken. Did you just see that? Yes. So the mark of the beast was what? Taken. And with him, the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received what? The mark of the beast, and them that worshipped what? His image. These both were cast out alive into the world, lake of fire, burning with what? Why do we get this imagery? Because those who use miracles and propagate the mark of the beast, God said, I will cast you alive in the lake of fire. All that shows us how God hates the mark of the beast. What do you see? Did you get that clear? So if there is one thing you can say, all prophecy in the book of Revelation tells you and I to hate the what? Mark of the beast. Watch yourself wherever you are. All prophecies in the book of Revelation tells us to what? Hate the mark of the beast. Now what is so bad about that we should hate it? Now as you observe in the chart, the mark of the beast legislation, watch, the third angel's message strongly condemns it. You read that, right? Amen. The wrath of God, the seven plagues fall upon those who have it. You read that, right? Yeah. Hellfire is for those who propagate it, right? Yes. And one more thing, victory must be gotten over it. Yes. It is so bad that God said you must have a special victory over it. Revelation 15, verse 2. Revelation 15, verse 2. Look at that. And hear what it tells you here in verse 2. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with what? Fire. And them that had gotten victory over the beast, and over his image, and over what? His mouth. And over what? The number of his days. Stand upon the sea of glass, having what? The house of God. They gained victory over his mark. We are looking at the mark, you know. You're the one of them standing on a platform that is like a sea of glass and a fire sparkling in it. And you will have hearts of gold. Imagine that if you gain victory over the mark of the beast. That shows you how much you must learn to hate the mark of the beast. Amen, brethren? That's why you must learn to hate it. So the Bible clearly tells us victory must be gotten over it. Mark of the beast which comes by legislation, as we will see. Is that understood, my dear brethren? Now let's just go to the next step here. How do you get government to enforce this mark of the beast? How do you get government to enforce this mark of the beast? Next shot. You see, you must have something called the image of the beast set up for you. And it is the image of the beast that will enforce what you call what? The mark of the beast. You must do that. But how would you get an image of the beast to be set up? How would you get an image of the beast set up that it will be able to enforce the mark of the beast? Your Bible tells you that it is miracles that are done by evil angels. Notice this. It is miracles that are done by evil angels that will cause the image of the beast to be set up, that the mark of the beast can enforce. Now this is what you're going to read in Revelation 13. You go back to 13, where you started. You observe, your Bible tells you that you need the image of the beast to be set up. But it is miracles that must be done to encourage the setting up of the what? Image of the beast. And it is the image of the beast which enforces what? The mark of the beast. That's what the Bible will show you. Now remember that pattern where? As the chart shows you here, which we will touch in a short while. Let's look and see. Take your time and read from verse 12. I should read from verse 11, but let's go from verse 12. Let's read from verse 11. You ready? And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. He had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now notice what is going on here. We are told another beast. This beast comes up out of the earth. He has two lamb-like horns, but eventually he speaks like what? A dragon. Now we know the Bible clearly tells us Christ is the lamb slain from the what? Foundation of the world. And a beast, horns and a beast is identified in Daniel chapter 7 as two types of powers. Two types. Government and religion. So when you see a beast or a country that rises has two basic powers. The power of its religion and the power of its what? Government. So here this one comes up and professes a government that is lamb-like and a religion that is lamb-like. There is only one nation that fulfilled that prophecy. The United States of America. The type of government that America proposed and had was what we call Jeffersonian republicanism. That is a government that respects your rights and your freedoms as coming from God. And as a result of that, you are told that government is supposed to what? Protect your what? Rights and freedoms. So your rights and freedoms must be what? Protected by government. The religion that set the United States of America up was Protestantism. That is a religion that protests against evil. And how do you know a religion is dying out? When the church of that religion is being flooded with all kind of compromise with the world and they are not protesting. Yes. It is Protestantism that keeps a religion pure. Yes. You must protest the evil. And this is the reason why this church exists. This church exists as God's Protestant church. We protest evil. Yes. We're not supposed to embrace it. We're not supposed to cooperate with evil. We're supposed to protest. But the Bible tells us there's a time when the government will speak like a dragon and the religion will speak like a dragon. Now, it tells us who is the dragon already. It tells us that ancient serpent called the what? Devil and Satan. That is the dragon. So, it would mean that the government and the religion must speak like the devil. This is a prophecy of the United States. The United States of America in the future will speak like the devil when it comes to rights and freedoms. What does it mean to speak like the devil when it comes to rights and freedom? All you have to do is to see when the devil confronted Jesus. The first thing he did was to trick Jesus, try to trick Jesus in giving up his faith for private property. You know? If you are the Son of God, change his stone into bread after he was fasting for 40 days. Now if Jesus had believed him, he wasn't getting any bread, but he would have lost his faith. So what he did here is to attack Jesus' private property right, because bread is the adequate symbol of private property. When you have bread, you eat it, it goes and becomes part of your body, which nobody could become part of. So it becomes private property. So bread is a symbol of private property, but that is not all. Afterwards, he tried to trick Jesus again and tell Jesus. He carries him up on a temple and tell him, if thou be the Son of God. And now he quotes scripture for Jesus. Cast yourself down, because it is written. So the devil could use what? Scripture also. And told him that he will send his angels and give them charge over you, lest at any time they will not dash your foot against a stone. Of course, we see he was attacking Jesus' right to life. Because if Jesus doubted the Son of God and jumped off the temple, what do you think happened? Stayed right on there. Amen? And finally, when he didn't get through, he came out raw, revealing what he wanted. He took Jesus on top an exceeding high mountain where you can see the kingdoms of the earth, which would be like Mount Everest. You look to the north, you see China and all the nations here. You look to the south, you see all going down to the Middle East. To the west, Europe. To the east, China, Pacific, and all these places. And he tells Jesus, all this will I give unto you. All you have to do is just fall down and worship me. And that is your right of religious liberty. Jesus must not place his religious liberty in the hands of Satan. Because when you place your religious freedom in the hands of what? Satan, he will oppress you. Yes. So the third temptation he faced was over the right of religious liberty. So you have three major rights. The right to religious liberty, the right to life, and the right to what? Private property. Make sure you know that. Make sure you remember that you can partake out of the mouth with your eyes closed. Okay? Make sure you know that. And so, to speak like the dragon or the devil is to rob a person of your religious liberty, rob a person of the right to life, rob a person of the right to what? Private property. Is that understood? But for religion to speak like the devil, for religion to speak like the devil, is to depend on the devil to do miracles. You didn't hear that one? It's to depend on who? The devil to do miracles. So this power, we are told, the United States of America, the government will become evil in its legislation, attack your rights and freedom, but the religions will develop spiritualism using miracles. Let's see what happens when that happens. Verse 12. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him. Did you see that? So he is exercising the same power of the what? The first beast before him. Now let me tell you this. The first beast before him is where the phrase mark of the beast comes from. You hear that? So he is copying now what the beast before him did. But the beast before him is whom the mark is identified to. So all he will have to do is to enforce the what? The mark of the what? The first beast before him. Let's read. Make sure you get it good. And he exercises all the power of the what? First beast before him, and causes the earth and them that dwell therein to what? Worship the first beast, whose what? Then the moon was he. stop right here. Now, many of you to whom this is new do not understand what this is saying. But the first beast before this American beast, who received a wound, was the papal beast, the papacy. Notice, America in 1776 drafted the what? Declaration of what? Independence. By 1798, the papacy lost its control over civil law when it was abolished by Napoleon Bonaparte. Working for the Rothschilds, the international bankers who are behind the IMF, the World Bank, the Federal Reserve, central banks, and a whole prestigious amount of organizations. These people were behind at the very early stage when they now came about, abolishing the papacy's control over civil law. So the papacy received a wound with this war. But they lived, they survived. Today we have the papacy. Wherever the Pope goes, he gets more recognition than presidents. They survived. But we are being told that the United States of America will tell people to worship the first beast before himself, who received the wound but did live. Is that understood? Make sure you get that clear. This is a place where the most dynamic nation in the history of this earth, which is the most dynamic nation in the history, not even Britain, not even sick old Britain that have lost all its rights and freedoms, not even Britain, not even Germany. The most dynamic nation on the earth is the United States of America. You ever ask yourself the question, how come 300 and something million people today living in a land territory not even half the size of Europe could have so much influence on the world that even Europe is following them? Look at the Chinese communists. And the government made a negotiation with China. They're going to open a Chinese town like down here, like you have in some other countries. There's a kind of China town, like a China park, where they have a whole set of their businesses and so on. But watch this. Watch this. China, their steel is not superior. If they take steel and make things from steel, the steel is not superior. But Mao Zedong, when he was alive, said no country could be great without producing its own steel. That's what Mao Zedong said. And he made sure China set up making their own steel. But of all the steel, the country that made the most superior steel was the United States of America. Very strong, good. So the bankers want to destroy America and exalt socialism. So what do? They cause certain tariffs to be placed on American steel, that American steel will be too expensive to purchase. And they put no tariff on Chinese steel, that Chinese steel will be cheap to purchase in America. So if you go and watch and say, watch me, this is a shelf rate of Chinese steel. This is a shelf rate of American steel. The American steel may cost, let us say, $40 per round. The Chinese steel costing $10 per round. Which one you would buy? And they did that to America. They blocked them. They destroyed the steel industry from America, so that American steel, although superior, became too expensive to have. So if you in Europe say you want American steel, too much blockages for you to get it. And finally when you buy it, you have to pay too much. So you know what Trump did? He spoke to them and told them,
Fair trade, man.
Fair trade.
Fair trade.
We want our people to get back their jobs. Because we have to close down the steel industry now in America. Okay? We have to close it down now. Wait. We telling you, the tariffs you put on our steel, remove it. That way, we don't have fair competition. The Chinese say no. He says the time is coming, I'm going to put tariff on your steel. So he put tariff on the Chinese steel. So if you go now and you want to buy American steel, $40, Chinese steel with the tariff $40, which one are you going to buy? That's what's going on. That is the trade war that is beginning now. The bankers don't like it because Americans will get back their jobs. And listen to me right now. America, its unemployment rate has fallen the lowest down to 1970s level. If you want to run and make money now, this is the right time to run in America and make money. But if you want to lose your spirituality, watch out. Since 1970, that's how unemployment has fallen. But you know the media wouldn't say it. Because if the media say it, Donald Trump will look good and he must look bad. Because they don't like what he's doing. He's upsetting the new world order. Did you see that, my dear brother? What you will see where it is needed. That's what this study is to show you where it is needed. And I will show you American politicians talking and for you to see what is becoming the new normal. You will be shocked. Don't talk about my documents here. You will be surprised. It's about time for you to know what's going on. It's about time for you to know the climate has already changed. A change has already set, and it will never go back to how it was before.
Yes, Elamina, I understand the contents of your explanation as it relates to, or in relation to America speaking like a dragon, with rights to life, etc. Would you say that passing gay rights, wouldn't that be like speaking like a dragon? Would you say that?
There's nothing called gay rights. Well, I know what you're talking about. But in the meanwhile, let me just make sure you learn your language properly. And this is one problem here. You belong to this church, learn the language of the church. The language of the church has been shaped to deal with the error. Sodomy is not a lifestyle. It's just a 10 or 15 minutes practice. Unless you're eating sodomy, you're bathing sodomy, you sleep in sodomy, you're going to work sodomy. No! It's not what? A lifestyle. It's a few minutes evil. And secondly, there's nothing called a gay right. Rights are not what you do with your body. If you want to cut off your body now, like a cutter's rights. Rights are not where you choose to have sex. Rights are given by God. And you have the right to religious, the right to life, and the right to property. That is right. Not where you have sex. But what they call gay rights is usually legislation to force you to cooperate with their deviant practice. So what they call it is a legislation that forces you to cooperate with their devious practice. And if he said that he's speaking like a dragon, since the dragon is Satan the devil, socialism, which is dragon, the red dragon, the dragon in Revelation 17, that also is full of all kind of blasphemy, which includes sodomy, and false genders and all these sort of things. It's all there. It is satanic therefore. And it is anti-rights and anti-freedom. That's the reason why you cannot be a sodomite without being naturally Christian soul.
Amen.
Yes, all of that, yes. Somebody asked, is the mark of the beast, is it Sunday exaltation, or is it the legislation of Sunday, etc., or both? First of all, the mark of the beast is not the legislation of Sunday, but it is the legislation that pushes or that enforces the mark of the beast. But we are coming to that. Let's continue to read. But I'm just trying to show you, look what's going on in America now. They will become so powerful economically that they will tell every nation of the world, do what I say. And they have to do what they say. Did you just see what happened in the G7 meeting with Donald Trump? Yes. He was the boss. And all the nations had to come to him. He was the dumb. America is already rising. They're getting that powerful economically speaking. That's right? So in other words, he's making them great again. And they're already building their wall. They're already building their wall. So they have done something to those who want to be illegal immigrants in America. They come from the south. A lot of illuminist people push them to the American border. They come, this is what they do. If you're speaking and they come in, they are arresting you, jail you for breaking the laws, and then send you back. Some people will say, oh, look at how they're treating black people. But it's white people too. It's Latino too. It's everybody. But tell me, why would you leave white Honduras and come to all those other countries and come to Mexico to come to America? Why didn't go in probably Mexico and live? Because the Mexicans is in a jail for 5 years, they're going to rob and rape, take all the product, and then they'll throw you back out. But they come into benevolent America. In our issue here, that is not even the point for all of us. The point is, America is becoming great one again. And notice what we are told here. They're going to appoint people to the first beast one before him. Tell people we should not do. But how is that going to happen? How is America going to do that? Watch what your Bible tells you. Because I see how.
I just want to make a statement about what happened this week with the Italian ship with all the black migrants, and they wanted to turn them back. And then they had a big backlash with the French president saying that the Italian people are wicked people because they didn't want to allow the migrant ship to dock and people to get aid or whatever they needed or whatever.
Isn't it not surprising how migrants always seem to be between 19 years to 35?
Yeah.
And almost only male? I can't remember when I see a 60-something year old migrant. And with women. I have seen a lot of young black males from these countries strong and from countries that don't even have war. Nobody's killing anybody in Morocco. Why are they running? Nobody's killing anybody in Algeria. In Nigeria, they're kidnapping you and you find yourself on migrant boat going to Italy. You know what people find themselves kidnapped on these boats? And who is the one running the boats? NGOs. Paid for by George Soros, who has set a plan to change the racial composition of Europe that they will control Europe. But wait, I need to read my documents for you all to see what's going on. Because we are looking at the finalities taking place. Signs of the finalities, that's what we're looking at. And you need to pay attention to what we are talking about here. Let your mind open now and listen. Because you will not get this analysis in the Laodicean organization.
No way.
You wouldn't get it there. You wouldn't get it also in these evangelical churches. But I want you to see what these American politicians are saying. You have this video footage here with they themselves talking for you to see. You also have Donald Trump talking here. You need to see what's going on. Amen? Amen. So let's continue to read. So how will the people worship this beast before? Verse 13. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make what? An image to the beast, which had been wounded by a sword and what? And did. So did you just see that? We are being told that the religious establishment in America is going to do miracles and tell people this miracle is a sign from God that he wants you to make an image of the beast. So, watch me, image of the beast. I put in brackets here, political communism governance. But it is just the religion will be apostate protestant. So it is a type of political and religious governance that they're trying to set up. A kind of political and religious governance. But this political religious governance is going to take away your rights and your freedom. Are you listening to me? Yes. So, to see the image of the beast coming, you must see a political, religion, kind of governance slowly developing. Amen? Yes. You must see a political, kind of religious governance slowly developing. And when it develops, it will rob you of your rights and freedom. I will prove to you from video footage that is developing now. Yes. So that you're seeing signs of these finalities now. Amen. You will see the video footage. Now you see, we're giving you this in an intelligent, sensible way. So that you can understand. So when you see these things going on in America, to you, it's not just ordinary news, it's a significant news. Because it is leading to what you know the Bible said would happen. Amen? Amen? Notice again, let's read on again. I'm going to read it over and I'm going to read it over quick, but just for emphasis, reading it over 30. And he doing great wonders. So he do plenty miracles. So that he maketh fire come down where? On the earth in the sight of what? Men. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of what? Those miracles. Which he had what? Power to do where? In the sight of the beast. Did you just see that? So, a lot of miracles are going to be wrought. But one of the major miracles is what the Bible calls out here. It's a miracle that took place in the days of Elijah. When they put all this sacrifice animal on the stone. And Elijah prayed and said, Father in heaven, send this fire to prove that you, Yahweh, is the true God. So they are going to mimic that miracle. They're going to do something, put some kind of sacrifice or something. These religions are going to circle it, and they're going to say, Dear Father in heaven, send miracle to prove you want an image of the beast system to be set up. And guess what is going to happen? Fire is going to come down from heaven in the sight of men. And they will do plenty miracles and deceive people by the means of those miracles. Your Bible is telling you it's miracles that is going to encourage the setting up of the what? Image of the beast. Because when they do the miracles, they have a message in the miracle. What is the message? Right? Verse 14. And he deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Here's the message. Saying to them that dwell where? On the earth. That they should what? Make an image to the beast which had the what? Who by a sword and what? Did you see that? So the message is set up an image of the beast system. That's the message. You know why you have to give a message? Because for America to set up an image of the beast system, they have to go against Jeffersonian republicanism. They have to go against their constitution. What would make people who say our constitution is unchanging and we will never give it up? What will cause our people to give up their constitution, to change it in such a way to set up a system that is against the constitution? One thing, miraculous proof that God wants it. Miraculous proof that God wants it. And that is how the devil works in miracles. But then the Bible tells us the government will finally give in and do it. Yes. Next verse. And he had power to give life to the image of the beast. Now some people come and tell you, look, the devil and all the demons in hell, they set up an image of the beast and they give it life. Look at it have life. Excuse me? No evil angel could give life. The devil couldn't give life. Remember how Moses stopped the Egyptian communist magician? Stop on. Even if they bring a whole plague of frogs, the magicians do it, they bring a plague of frogs. If they made the river turn red, the magicians do it and sure they can do it. Then God tells Moses, take dust and throw it up in the air. And I will make a light that will bind them. And Moses shot the dust. And out of the dust, God made a light and it bind them. What did the priest say? He said, that is the power of God. We couldn't do that one. Back off. They said, that is the power of God. We can't do that one. Yet evangelicals stupidly tell people that some carving of a beast is going to be made and evil angels and devil do miracles to get life. But then serve the devil if he could give life. Yes. He couldn't do it in Egypt, but he could do it now. Yes. Come on, wake up, you fools. Wake up. The life given here is legislative life. Yes. The system is made a life to work by legislation. Yes. That's what happens. It is given legislative life, not physical life. Is that understood? Yes. But the day the devil could make and carve out a beast like image and put life in it, he really is a newborn. And that is the reason why you have to watch out, because these evangelicals are glorifying the devil as God, the creator, the giver of life, with that false prophecy. Yes. And this is the reason why I watch out. Don't think that they are right because of that, because they themselves giving the impression that the devil has the power of giving life and he's a creator. Yes. But that false prophecy. You see, prophecy must break the laws of the Bible. What do you say? Yes. But when you say lawless, what do you expect? Yes. Did you get that one? That one they do in the plates. But then eat that one, take a child and eat that one. Let's look at verse 15 again. And he had power to give life to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast could both speak by law and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be what? Killed. You see the death penalty will come? You see, when they set up this kind of political community governance, notice that they threatening the right to life, you could be what? Killed. So it means to say the religion is already communistic in its initiative because they want to do what? Kill you. Yes. Did you see that? And then they say you should be killed. So the kind of political community governance, which is the type of government, is simply this. They don't obey the government. That's what they will have written in the laws. You don't obey this type of government, you're getting you what? Death penalty. But then the Bible tells you when they will try to enact the death penalty on us. Some people will go before and murder you. And when they go before the courts, they will get away. Until the government decides in one day to wipe out all the righteous. But God will not allow them, would he? No. So there must be people that must gain victory over the war. Peace and his aid. That's right, there must be a people.
Yes, man.
You know what? You are finally seeing what is coming. You are finally seeing it. Amen? Amen. That's why today when you want,
hear his voice.
What?
And not your hearts.
Amen, brother?
Amen.
Do that one by heart. That is good, that is good. So let's read on. Right. So what will he do? Right? Notice the first thing they tell you is to what? Worship the beast.
Yes.
By force. The religious liberty being taken away. Next thing they tell you, we'll kill you. Your rights and life being what? Taken away. It means for one thing that they're going on. You know what? Private property. Let's read on. Let's see what will happen. Go on. Verse 16. And he calls it all. Both what? Small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, that no man might what? Buy or sell, save he had the mark or the name of the beast or the what? So notice this. You won't be able to buy or sell. So by that now you attack your private property rights. That's how America speaks like a giant. But they create a system, a political and religion governance system, a type of government which is against Jeffersonian republicanism, which says that your rights come from God and no man must violate your rights. So it is inalienable, inviolable. Amen, brethren? Amen. That's what they teach. That's the current constitution. But now the change is going to tell you, worship this power or else I'll kill you and I'll take away your property rights. Did you see that, my dear brother? That's what we're being told here. That's what we're being told here. You know, I really want to shock you. I feel like just put a document aside and leave it on. But you better follow it in order. Better follow it in order. Don't tempt me. Alright. So here is the next question we obviously will have to ask. Since miracles will be done, watch. Miracles encourage the setting up of the what? Image of the beast. No. Miracles encourage the setting up of the image of the beast. Which is what? Which enforces what? The mark of the beast. So it is the what? The that enforces what? The mark of the beast. You got it. You saw it here, right? Yes. You saw it here, right? Yes. Good. Now, so here is the next logical question. Next shot. Here is the next logical question. Who is going to do all those miracles? Who is going to do all those miracles to tell you and I to do this? If we can only find out who is going to do all those miracles. And here is where we give you the burden of the proof falls on our shoulder to tell you. Since we're talking about that, it is us to give you the burden of proof who is going to do those miracles. It's on our shoulders to show you that. You want to know who is going to do the miracles? We're going to show you. But first, let's see who the Bible says does it. Go back to Revelation 19:20. Revelation 19:20. Let's see who the Bible says does it. Verse 20. And the beast was taken. And with him whom? Bible didn't describe the beast in this one. It just described who? The false prophet. Let's see why. We read on again. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he received them that had received the what? Mark of the beast, and them that what? Worship his image. Stop there. So who it is?
False
Does the miracles.
prophet.
The Bible calls it what? False prophet. It didn't say false prophets plural. The false prophet given to the name of an organization. If we can find out who the Bible calls false prophet, then we will know who is the one doing the miracle. We just have to find out who the Bible tells us is a false prophet. So we now need to look in the Bible and see if we can find out who's the false prophet. Amen, brethren? Good. You ready for this? Matthew 7. We'll read 15 to 23, and then we'll take it apart piece by piece. So find it. Matthew 7, 15 to 23. Are you ready for this? Matthew 7, 15 to 23. Ready for this? Okay, we read. Okay, we read. And you know, as I'm going to read, I'm also smiling. You know why I'm smiling here? Because this is so descriptive that when we finish, you must know who we're talking about. But for the sake of more proof, we are going to more scripture. All we expect you is to think of the religious landscape that you know in the world today. Is it the Muslims? I'm just asking, I'm not telling you to answer. Is it the Hindus? Is it the Catholics? Is it the evangelicals? Who is it? Let's see who is guilty as charged. We read from chapter 7, from verse 15 to 23. You ready for this? No, I'm reading slower. I'm reading slow. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in what? Sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are what? Ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth what? Good fruit. But a corrupt tree bringeth forth what? Evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. Neither can a corrupt tree bring forth what? Good fruit. The church needs to think about that. That a corrupt tree cannot bring forth what? Good fruit. Good. You read on. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast where? Wherefore by their fruits ye shall? Now hold on right here. So one thing you know for sure. Once that tree is bringing forth an evil fruit, it's going into hellfire. It's going to be cut down and thrown where? Into hellfire. Because it is bringing forth what? Evil fruit. Now, let's see a little more description of the false prophet or the evil tree. Let's read on. It goes up. Verse 21. Not everyone that say unto me what? Lord, Lord, shall what? Enter into the kingdom of heaven. But he that what? Doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Stop right here. So Christ is now giving us further explanation. Not because he's saying Lord, Lord, You always hear them, Jesus is Lord, Jesus is Lord. So I ask, but if Jesus is Lord, why don't keep the Lord's Day?
Amen.
You get the idea?
Amen.
No, Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord. They're always calling Jesus is Lord. And when they're calling Jesus is Lord, it is Alvin Slaughter that they. Let's move on. It goes on. Don't ask and I won't tell. A singer, an evangelical singer. Now let's move on. Again, verse 21. Again, verse 21. Some people have loud smiles there. You know something? Not everyone that say unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. But he that doeth the what? Will of my Father which is in heaven. So Christ is explaining what he means. Hear what he says. Many shall say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in what? Thy name have cast out what? Devils. And in thy name have done what? Many wonderful works. Then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Good Lord, they did the miracles in Jesus' name. You see them on television, especially the one who years ago in Sandy Grande, where they had the old Sandy Grande church, and he had a house, he used to live right next door there. And some brethren carried me there. I used to be in Stanmore in the church. And some brethren carried me there to say, you need to speak to this pastor of this evangelical church, who they say do miracles and things. And they carried me quite grandly, because I didn't even know the place. And it was a Sunday, or some other day, sometime in the evening or so. And I went right by the home to talk. And this arrogant, quote-unquote pastor came out and we started to talk. And the man behaved wrathful and arrogant. You couldn't even reason with him. And hear me, that is a pastor? I thought the moment you are a pastor, the first thing somebody should be able to reason with you. But you see, when they can't talk to somebody, they're no pastor before God. Because they have to reason with the person. You must be able to reason with a person to show them their sins. What did he say? And this arrogant man started to get on. And he get on in arrogance and reject the Sabbath, and it was a big battle, both of us had. And I had to denounce him and rebuke him. Today, you're on television with some kind of prophetic ministry, running up and down the pulpit and rolling on the ground. Somebody asked me about him, about Michael Lewis. He too up in the valley when he started under our house. When we went and I talked to him until he rejected everything about the Sabbath, everything. And then later moved from under the house, went to Henry Street in some place, and then buy over the old Odeon cinema where they have Deliverance Temple. But it's not what I was talking about. I was talking about the other one running up and down and rolling on the ground. And who is always calling people up and you know, I think some miracle happened to them. You know what, it never did see with them? Watch. I will tell Coffee again. I said, what you all do is not right.
Amen.
Or you always come after and say, and this one heard preaching again, and this one get healed. It always happens after you give it the report. Before you give the report. Why don't we see it? Put it on TV. Let us see it come and say, heal, and let's see the person get up. But no, none of all it does that. They always come and always tell us something that happened sometime. We never get to see it. But if Jesus said they get to see it, they did the miracles in Jesus' name. But they were not doing what? His will. So the Bible calls it works of what? Iniquity. That is for those of you who you think they actually have works of righteousness. The Bible didn't call it works of righteousness. The Bible called it works of what? Iniquity. Yeah. Are you listening to me?
Yes.
Are you listening to me?
Yes.
I'm going to call nobody name. Because this goes up on the internet.
But you need it after.
So I didn't say your Bible said it, they did miracles in Jesus' name. Amen, brother? Now, the first thing we look at, the Bible says, wolves in sheep clothing. We need to look at that. We need to look at wolves in sheep clothing. What does that mean? Sister Nicole, you put up your hand?
Yes, yes. I just wanted to find out if you saw the latest baptisms that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. Have you seen it? Well, the new baptisms that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago by Pastor Trevor Sayers. Have you seen it? Well, the new baptism that is taking place with Pastor Trevor Sayers is that he has his head covered like like those prophets of old. And he have a bucket of water there, which he blesses, and people can call in on the phone, and you're getting baptized over the phone. Yes, with the bucket of water. Yes. That is the latest. Yes.
We got the chance here to bring him quiet here.
Yes.
We do something that we don't usually do. Bring him quiet and let him sit down in public and try to talk to us.
Yes.
He couldn't even listen. He couldn't even listen. That's why when we set up a sanitarium, it's going to be a real thing. What do you say? Getting real cures. And we're going to give you cures using simple things in your environment.
Amen.
Show you simple needs in your environment. And we're going to be dealing with that in a while. We're going to be talking about that here, showing you things to use for different things. Amen, brother? That will help yourself. The real stuff is what you're going to get. Amen, brother? So let us start looking at some of this sheep. Some of those sheep skin covered a wolf. The question we need to ask is, what is a wolf in the Bible? What is a wolf in the Bible? When Christ comes and says, they are like wolves, right? Okay? Brother, yeah. As in the just before you talk, find John 10. John 10.
Perfect example, since you bring it up at the right time. That time, someone in Africa trying to who was all the working miracles and things. What all those Africans, different states are thinking about the working miracles. And this time in the scriptures of this man was in a river and baptized him and tried to baptize him and the man fell subject merging him that alligator can't eat the man. So I hear this thing the man says, so who is he?
In Ethiopia. The famous pastor baptizing people. And after he baptized a man in the water, and the man come out, the alligator come and take the pastor. He never did find him. But he was killed. But you think that, let me tell you, let me give you another strange thing I can watch. That is instructive. Could you imagine you sitting on a kayak watch and you're in a nice, peaceful lake moving. And all of a sudden, the lake started to spin a certain area, a whirlpool. And a sinkhole developed under the lake. So the whirlpool started to come and pour you fighting to get yourself out. And the whirlpool pull you underneath and kill you. That happened with itself. So you see, all kind of strange things are happening. as the end draws near. Strange thing. A person come out of their house in the morning, walk down the stairs, and as they go behind, let me tell you, I'm not lying here. Millions and millions of caterpillars surround the house. Two types. A dark type and a fair type. Where did that come from? These things didn't used to happen before. And you know some people are squeamish about wolves. And millions of it just surround your house. Tick, tick, tick like a river surround your house. All kind of strange, weird things happen today. Because this is the end. And you're being warned. Be careful, I know some of you don't like wolves.
Presently, I've been speaking here.
Yes.
My first day there is millions and millions of grasshoppers. I never seen like that before. I'm talking about millions and place dark with it. And all of the trees all by my house all over.
Grasshoppers. Grasshoppers, he says, millions of grasshoppers by him. They put it on Facebook. That's actually here, put it on Facebook. You will send it first. Okay? Okay? So, right? So my dear brethren, let's now look at some wolves. Now, 2 weeks ago, a strange creature they found, I think it's in Arizona. They've never seen a wolf that size yet. One gigantic wolf, huge. They don't know where it came from, but some family shot it. You know? So it's all kind of strange things suddenly popping up all over the place. So, while the fix the battery there, John 10. John chapter 10, the Gospel of John chapter 10. 7 to 10. Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and what? Robbers. But the sheep did not hear them. So you have a category of people who is identified as what? Thieves and robbers. Let's go on. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be what? Saved. Okay. So let's go on. Verse 9 again. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be what? Saved. And shall go in and out and find what? Pasture. Now comes the real part. The thief cometh not, but for to what? Steal and to what? Kill and to what? Destroy. I am come that you may what? And have it all. Right. So, okay? We're going on. But before that, we are going to look at where the wolf comes from. Okay? Yeah. Where the wolf comes from. So let's read verse 12 and then we'll go to Acts 20. Verse 11. First, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an what? Hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the what? Wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and what? Fleeth, and the wolf what? Catcheth them, and what? Scattereth the sheep. Right, so you see? So the wolf comes to capture the sheep. Chase after the sheep, capture the sheep, destroy the sheep. So we have a wolf here. But you must remember, the wolf is a destroyer of the sheep. The wolf is a what? Destroyer of the sheep. Now turn to Acts 20. 29 and 30. 20, 29 and 30. Is it far? It goes on. For I know this, Paul speaking, that after my departing shall grievous what? Wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. What are these wolves? It goes on also. Of your own selves shall men what? Arise, speaking what? Perverse things to what? To draw away disciples after them. So in other words, we know one thing for sure. We know one thing for sure. That a wolf comes from even among the church. They speak perverse things. They draw disciples after them, but they are destroyers of the flock. That's what they do. So could you imagine a person rise up in a church? Oh, no, I don't believe this, I believe that. And they draw disciples after them. But what they teach you destroys you. And then they go on further. They put on sheep clothing. So they appear as a Christian. You understand? So they take the name of Christ. They're acting like if they are Christian. But they are among you. They are raging wolves, destroying you spiritually. If a minister, let me look at a minister as a wolf. A minister come and tell you, I hear one of them, I was listening to one of them talking. We can't say we sin free. If we are sin free, we wouldn't need Christ again. In other words, hear what he says. You cannot claim to be sin free because if you're sin free, you don't need Christ again. Because if you're sin free, you reach your mark to overcome. You don't need Christ again. So he is saying that every single sin free angel in heaven don't need Christ. Moses is there where? In heaven. Elijah is there where? They are all what? Sin free. So they don't need Christ again. So that minister is saying that when you are taken to heaven, you won't need Christ again. So they give the impression that sin-freeness means you overcome so you don't need Christ again. So yeah, well, to show you need Christ, have some sin. That is a raging wolf. Because he's telling you, you are saved what? In your sin. That's what he's telling you. But he appears as if he's a Christian. He appears as if he's a Christian. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. Watch this. Watch this. Go back to Matthew 7. So the person must claim to be a Christian. They must claim to be a Christian sheep. They're wearing sheep clothing. They are wolf underneath, but they have the image of a Christian. You know that, right? As one man. So I am not looking for a Muslim or Hindu. I'm looking for a person who come and claim to be a what? A Christian. They appear as a what? Christian. They're from the fold of what? Christianity. But they really destroy you. They're really destructive to you. That's what we are looking for. So we're already focused to know where to look, right? Yes. Now you're focused to know where to look. Let's see if we can find a couple more masks. Let's go back to chapter 7 and read. Watch. Alright? Notice again in verse 21. Not everyone that say unto me, God, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father, which is what? In heaven. In other words, these people here were saying, Lord, Lord, but they were not doing the will of the Father. If we could find out what is the will of the Father, we could find out what they were not doing. Psalm 48, verse 8. Psalm 40, verse 8. Psalm 40, verse 8. Psalm 40, verse 8. It's so simple as it is. It's just that simple. Scripture with scripture, each scripture should not be scripture. If you don't see and even do not hear, should have been to find something. And if you don't have a Bible, then you look at yours. So Psalms 40, we look at verse 8. Psalm 40, we look at verse 8. Have you found it? Amen. We read. I delight to do what? Thy will, O my God. Yea, what? Thy law is written what? So the will of God is his what? Law. Amen. My God is telling you thou shalt not. That is his will for you. If God says what? Remember the Sabbath day. And his will for you is that you will remember it. And the very day you're supposed to remember, people forget. Good Lord, even if you will remember, they forget. You catch that? Yes. So in other words, the will of God is his law. So here is what? These people claim to be Christians. They call upon the name of God, but they do not his will, which is the law. So they are breaking his law. But one of them will come and say, we are not breaking any law. Let us show them how they're breaking it. You ready to show? Yes. Let's show them how they're breaking it. James chapter 2. And we look at 8 to verse 12. This is from. We read. If you fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, you do well. Wait a minute. So I put on television, put a disc with the latest TV program that have been made, to just check it out and see how it looks. But it so happened that the disc didn't work properly, so it couldn't show. So when I removed the disc, the TV automatically switched to a channel, and I see a preacher preaching. So when I see the preacher preaching, I know these people. We have plenty of battles in the past, big fight in the ring, so to speak. Right? And he's preaching. So when he's preaching, he's dealing with the word fulfilled. If we get the chance, we'll talk about that this evening. But watch it. Notice what we are being told. If you fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as yourself, you do well. So what part of fulfill means do it, and then you don't have to do that. They are giving the impression that fulfill is contract fulfillment and not continual fulfillment. There's a difference between time relevant fulfillment and continuous fulfillment. Because the one is a contract fulfillment and the other one is a continuous fulfillment. You understand? You understand? Yes. One is a pass from the law fulfillment and the other one is I teach and do fulfill them. Which one? So if you are telling me fulfill means pass from, then if I keep the commandments, I can, let me say, let me do it for 2 hours. And I say, Lord, I fulfill the law. And what did you take it? Now I don't do any wrong. That is stupid. But if a minister of the gospel tells me that, then he's a wolf. He's a raving wolf because he's destroying. He's telling me, obey in part, and when you finish obeying, you don't have to obey again, you can now break. That is not fulfilled. That is contract fulfillment. But we need continual what? Fulfillment. But notice what we say here. Let's read this word. If you fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, you do well. But if you have respect to persons, you commit sin and are convinced of the law as transgressor. For whosoever shall keep the what? Whole law. Now we want to see how they are breaking the law, right? For whosoever shall do what? Keep the whole law and yet offended what? One point, he is what? Let's just stop here. So, how are they breaking the law? Notice what we are told. They do not God's will, which is the law. It means to say they must find one part of the law that they can somehow break, and by breaking that one point, you understand? I'm telling you they're keeping all the rest, they're really breaking the law, the whole law. Do you know what they usually do to do that? They set up a bath, they take the baby, which is the Sabbath, put it in the water, and when they stir everything up, they throw the whole water out to the baby. And they call it covenant. So that's what they do. They come up with the doctrine of the covenants. The old covenant, the new covenant. And when they say old covenant, they mix the Sabbath up in it. You know that sugar and water? Mix the Sabbath up in it. And then they say, the Bible says the old covenant was abolished. And we're under a new covenant. So they take the whole water and throw it out as the old covenant, throwing out the Sabbath with it. And now see they're the new covenant, they keep it 9, but they don't keep it 1. But the Bible says they break what? 1. You're guilty of what? 1. You see, so those who are the false prophets, doing miracles, they claim to be Christian sheep, they call upon the name of God, but they do not his will, which is the law. They are breaking the law. Yes. You want to find out who is calling upon God's name, who claims to be Christian as a religion, and who is breaking the law of God. Amen. How? By losing one of them. By losing one of them. You have to find that out. When they find that out, they're beginning to see. Amen. But that's not all. That's not all. We are also told they do miracles in what? Jesus' name. Matthew 24. Matthew 24.
Yeah, brother.
Yes.
What you say is very true, the only same time, because when you want to bring in a set of Billy Graham, that was document where this is our 10 Commandment conference. And everybody come together and say, you only keep it 9, but then after say the Sabbath, if you want to hold the Sabbath. You know, so that was a very nice conference. So the real thing is really this false prophets and it's really hypocrisy. You really see now I take the angels, but you use them to miracles because that is hypocrisy.
Right. Ready for this? Matthew 24. I always like to read the first part of Matthew 24. Let's read Matthew 24 and let's read it from verse 1 to verse 5. We read, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple, And the disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. So Jesus now walking out in the temple. And when he walking out, it is like his last walk. He's leaving the temple forever. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. So the disciples, not understanding what he's saying, Master, look at this nice building. And then Jesus is going to them, with them to the Mount of Olives. And as they go into the Mount of Olives, the temple started sparkling in the sun. Master, look at this nice building. Oh my God, look at it. But Christ just left it for the last, not to go back again. And let's see what happened. And Jesus said unto them, see you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. That was a shock to them. That beautiful building, you're telling us that every stone there will be thrown down? Jesus said yes. So now they reach up on the Mount of Olives and Jesus sit down and the disciples with him and they're watching at the building. Then they remember, he spoke to them about his second coming and the end of the world. And as they remember, and he said that the building, the temple will be thrown down. So they associate the temple being destroyed with the second coming. So here's what they're asking. Let's see. And as he sat on the Mount of Olives, verse 3, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, meaning the temple being thrown down? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Did you see the question they asked Jesus? Yes. What is the first sign Jesus gave them of the end of the world? Let's read on. Let's go on. And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man what? Deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying what? I am the Christ, and shall what? Deceive many. Stop right here. I hope you didn't read this in wrong English. Jesus didn't say, many shall come in my name, saying they are the Christ. Because if it was many claiming to be Christ, he would say, many shall come in what? My name, saying what? They are the Christ. He didn't say that. He said, many shall come in what? My name, and they will say what? I am the Christ. But what will they do?
Deceive many.
That's right. That's what Jesus said they will do. So what you are looking at here is people who profess that Jesus is indeed the Christ. They say that Jesus is the Christ. But they will what? Deceive many. Why? Why is it they say that Jesus is the Christ and they will yet deceive many? Why? Romans 1:16 and 17. Romans 1:16 and 17. We have one more scripture to add to that. Watch it. Romans 1:16 and 17. For I am not ashamed of what? The gospel of Christ. For it is the what? Power of God unto salvation. To everyone that what? Believeth. To the Jew first and also to the. For therein, in the gospel, is the righteousness of God from faith to faith. As it is written what? The just shall live by faith. Did you just see what it's telling us here? It tells us the gospel is the power. The word power there is dunamis, it means science. The science of God and the salvation. Why? Because in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed. And it is the righteousness of God that saves you. Amen. So God must impute his righteousness into you. Amen. So when he imputes his righteousness into you through the gospel, that righteousness saves you. So that gospel only works because the righteousness of God is in it. Amen. So anybody that comes to preach to you for any religion, especially an evangelical religion, they must have the gospel of Christ, which has the righteousness of God in it. Or else they'll be saying what? Lord, Lord, I'm deceiving you. What did the Bible say about that? No. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 5. 2 Timothy chapter 3, help me never find it in the book. Chapter 3 and verse 5. Now I'm going to read verse 1 for the backdrop of what we're going to read in verse 5. I'm going to read verse 1 first. Okay? Then I'll go to verse 5. Okay? Verse 1. Watch this. Verse 1. This know also that in the last days what? Perilous time shall come. And then verse 2 says, for men shall be, right? So you can stop here. For men shall be what? Lovers of their own self. Now it is dealing with men. For men shall be, not men as the male species, but men as humanity. Now go to verse 5. Those men shall do what? Having a form of godliness, but what? Denying the power thereof. And then the Bible says from such one. Did you catch that?
Yes.
So, we are being told here, they have the form of godliness, but they are actually denying the science of salvation, which is the gospel. So it means to say they must come to you with a false gospel, a false righteousness. Watch me. We can judge it in many ways. What did they tell you? Watch. Brother, we telling you don't have to keep no law because the Sabbath is abolished. The Bible says all thy commandments are what? So if you have a law that is missing one, you have a false righteousness. Yes. And if you have a false righteousness, your gospel is what? False. Yes. Amen? Amen? And if your gospel is false, it cannot make you live holy. Amen, Amen brother? Amen. So here's what we are being told. They literally claim that they're preaching Jesus, but it is a false gospel. So watch this now. The Americans are done by the false prophet. They claim to be Christian sheep, but really they are wolves. They don't have the sheep clothing. They are pairs of Christians. 2, they call upon the name of God. They say, Lord, Lord, Yahweh, Yahweh, whatever. They do not as well, they break the law by breaking one particular clause. Because they're not going to tell you go and commit adultery. They're not going to tell you go and steal. They're not going to tell you put up an idol. They're not going to tell you bear false witness. They're not going to tell you covet. But they're telling you don't give the Sabbath. So they're breaking what? One of all 10. The Bible calls the 10 a unit. Right? The 10 is a unit. If you break one of the 10, you throw down the whole house. You see, the 10 commandments is a 10-pillar law. And it can't hold up if one of the pillars are missing. So if you throw down one and it's 9, that is not the 10 commandments anymore. The can't even say it's 9 commandments. Because you break all, that is not the law. Right? You see, so they do not do it. They do miracles in what? Jesus' name. They preach Jesus. They say Jesus is the Christ. But they have not the gospel, so they deceive what? People. The only religion that does that is what? That's the only one. Not even the Catholic Church. What do you call them? That's what you call them. Why apostate? Because when Martin Luther started the Protestant Reformation, there was a group of people, one by the name of Agricola, who come and say, we're under grace, we're not under law. We're not saved by works. And they spread that in Luther time. And then dare come and tell Luther, Martin Luther, but isn't it true you're preaching what you're preaching? He says no. He says, when I speak about you're not saved by works, I mean you're not saved by doing the works. But you're not saved by breaking the law. You're saved by justification, but justification they can do the law. So I mean, don't do the law first to be justified. I mean be what? Be justified first and then you do the law. He called them heretics. And he called that a caricature of the gospel. You know, in those days when he say caricature, those Germans used to have some wild cartoon drawings there. They draw the Pope as a crooked rotten fella. They attack back Luther and put Luther having 7 heads and call him 7-headed dragon. So you know they used to draw things. So if you say that was a caricature of the gospel, it was real bad. So the point about it is, these people are apostate from the truth. They're evangelical because they claim to be preaching Christ and Him crucified. They are Protestants because they once used to protest, but they no longer want to protest. This is the false prophet. That means that there's a time when these apostate Protestants are going to do a lot of miracles. They're the ones that are going to do the miracles to encourage people to accept a type of governance that will encourage the enforcement of the mark of the beast. Yes. But here is something. Why would they want the mark of the beast to be enforced? You see, you have to understand what the mark of the beast is. When you understand what the mark of the beast is, you know the beast is the papal beast. When you understand what the mark of the beast is, then you will see why you want it to be enforced. Here is a quotation from the Great Controversy. Here is page 558 to 588 to 589. Here is what they told, I quote, Papists. Who? Papists. Protestant. Next shot. Papists. Protestants. And worldlings. All alike will accept the form of godliness without the power. Did you get what I just said? Yeah. The form of godliness without the power. And they will see in this union a grand movement for the conversion of the world and the ushering in of the long-expected millennium. So, first thing, a new plan has been hatched by these protesters. They feel boiled up now that the Trump administration is helping them. And in a while you'll hear Trump say he's going to fund them. Put money in their hand. Okay? Let me tell you something. America is rich beyond me. It's just very well circulated.
It's just what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Because of Christian principles that they were born upon.
That's it. The Trump administration has found a way to put the wealth back into people's hands, as I will show you. They find a way to put the wealth back into people's hands. This country is going to be swimming with money in the average person's hands in a while. Watch and see what's going to happen. Surely America is going to be made great again. Watch this. The latest plan they have hatched. 1 billion souls harvest. The Endtimes ushering in of history's greatest revival. I write out a little quotation here from this film. A number of them, these evangelicals, are coming together because they believe their unity will help set off history's greatest revival. I do believe in 1 billion souls harvest that have been prophesied about, the global awakening founder said. So they have set plans now to have 1 billion souls harvest. Now, we already have 2 billion Christians, quote unquote, on this earth. Islam is following with 1.4 billion. So, these evangelicals tell themselves, we're going to make a big jump. In a short while, let me get 1 billion souls. Then the next billion. then the next billion. They started out by converting en masse, billions conversion. And guess what? We are told, achieving a billion souls harvest, there must be a cooperation between what? Protestants, who else? Papists, and who else? Watch me. Protestants, the false prophet. Papists, the beast, and the government. To set an image. There must be a cooperation between all of them. Only when they get a cooperation between all of them, then they can work to achieve this. But I'm going to show you some films now. I want you to pay attention to what you're looking at. So, the government has already done something. They have found out that if you have what they call a right-wing party, and not a left-wing, called right-wing party, the people who will vote for you on the right are more people who have a sense of moral duty and so on, and they are in minority. So that's why left-wing parties most often come in power. So they have decided, now if the right-wing party wants power, they have to embrace left-wing policies, like the Conservatives in Britain. The Conservatives in Britain are named Conservative, but they are left more than anybody else. The Labour is already left. So in Britain, if you do, you are damned. If you don't, you are damned. That's Britain. Recently they catch May trying to trick them about Brexit, and the whole party turned against her. So put it this way, in Britain, Conservative, you're left. Labour, you're left. So like there's no right here. But the right have found out, nationalist parties you call them, if you could get people converted en masse, they will vote for you. And if you come in power, you'll be able to destroy the left who is pushing sodomy, sodomite marriages and all these sort of things. Because all of a sudden the religions start to get organized. And by the way, the 5-star and the other party that win in Italy, they are a religious party. They already don't have Sunday as a law in their manifesto long before. Let me tell you something, you don't know what's going on. You want to know how late time is? You don't know late time is because the movements to bring about the end are already here. And you are seeing certain things taking place in politics.
Yeah. In Austria,
yes.
Go right in party there. With a landslide, start up, send back Muslims to young monks.
Yes, that's right.
Christians do nothing. Christianity they know nothing in Austria.
Before I go forward, first, next one. Watch this too. There is always a work, there is already a working together behind the scenes so that the governments are already calling on evangelicals for help. Let's go.
Christian conservatives converge on the nation's capital. As control of Congress hangs in the balance, the Faith and Freedom Coalition is gearing up to elect pro-life lawmakers this fall. Correspondent Jason Calvi reports.
A call to be a light in the darkness.
To talk to my friends, talk to neighbors, and not be ashamed of what I feel and what I believe.
The conservative political group Faith and Freedom Coalition has 1.7 million members. Here at their annual meeting, pro-life lawmakers are making a plug.
We did 15 criminal referrals on what was transpiring between Planned Parenthood and the third-party body part sellers. The Department of Justice and the FBI have taken up all 15 of those referrals.
This is the most pro-life Congress we have ever had.
Rosa Miriello is a Catholic from Hilton Head, South Carolina. She tells me she doesn't want lip service from lawmakers.
Planned Parenthood, it's always been promised to be defunded and never gets defunded. I'm kind of disappointed in that regard.
But Republicans tell the crowd it's up to voters.
Our proposal to prohibit abortions of pain-capable unborn children after 20 weeks has still fallen short of the 60 votes it needs in the Senate. So, my friends, I need more reinforcements. Send them to us this November.
In the crowd today, Dominican sisters.
This is so ecumenical, and I'm like, to have the presence of religious sisters and priests here too, with the visible witness that the Catholic faith is behind all this.
Here at the Road to Majority Conference, you can take a photo with a cutout of President Trump, sign a birthday card for him ahead of his birthday next week, and tomorrow night, Vice President Mike Pence will speak, rallying the conservative activists ahead of this year's midterm elections. Wyatt?
Jason, I know you've also been speaking to voters in battleground states. What are you hearing from pro-life Americans?
Well, earlier this month, we hit the road with the Susan B. Anthony list. They're a national group that helps select pro-life candidates. And they tell us, as of today, they've knocked on 1 million doors in battleground states like Indiana and Missouri, states where the control of the Senate will be decided.
Let me just show you what happened here. Planned Parenthood is an illuminist organization. They push abortion, but they also sell baby parts. They will, if they say, well, okay, you want the child aborted, they're even giving you a partial birth abortion. And means the baby already part out of you. They kill the child because the child is still in you. And then they take it out and they sell the parts. They sell hands, foot, liver, all kind of things. This Planned Parenthood, Americans have been calling for the government to defund them, take our money away from them. But they won't do it. So now, the public, Christians, those type of Christians, are telling the government, we'll vote for you if you do not fund Planned Parenthood. So you saw the Republican leader of the House said, we don't have enough people to vote against it. Send them to us. In other words, vote for us and we'll stop Planned Parenthood. Already Donald Trump has taken Planned Parenthood to court, dealing with 15 different ways they have done wrong. So in other words, they're showing you, we are working for you. Look, we're dealing with Planned Parenthood, but we need more votes. So as midterm election come up in November, they're saying, send more for us. Send more on the right. Send more nationalists. That's what they're asking for. So this Republican from Texas is going to tell people, look, we have been working for you. Oh yes, the billion soul harvest. Pastor Andrew Womack said it's like a stealth thing. God is using Trump to enact the religious, right, theocratic agenda. Ralph Reed to mobilize 50 states grassroots army to protect Republican control of Congress. The last day of the Faith and Freedom Coalition Conference had many theocratic speakers claiming Trump is the key to victory. Yes, that is true. This is just some of it, right? Okay? Very good. So let's just look at one of the speakers here. Amen. Come and get you. Okay, this is what I'm going to go try to do, right? But I only just came out from the space here. Yes, right? Okay? Good. Right, so here is what. So this speaker of the Faith and Freedom Coalition is going to show you what has been done for Americans. For those of you who have been fooled by the media, you wanted to listen to what really happened. So listen to the first time. Don't be fooled by the media. Listen.
What I want to talk to you about this morning is I want to reflect on some of the incredible victories we have had for faith, for family, for the values we share. And I want to focus and highlight 7 victories in the last year and a half. 7 victories. Let's start with number 1, judges. Principled constitutionalist judges defending our rights. We see those on the federal courts all across the country. We see it in Justice Neil Gorsuch. And let me be one to thank God for the victory we had this week in the Colorado Bakers case. As you know, there a Colorado baker, a Christian, a man of faith, declined to participate in a same-sex marriage, declined to bake a wedding cake that would celebrate a same-sex marriage because he viewed it as contrary to his faith. Now, if we lived in the sort of society that those who call themselves liberals describe, a tolerant society, that would have been the end of the story. He would have lived according to his faith, and we would have respected that faith and the diversity amongst us. But there are those with a legal agenda that wanted to drive that baker out of business, to punish him and any other person of faith for daring to live according to your faith. It was a case that went to the Supreme Court. Pause to think, who would have thought a wedding cake would go all the way to the United States Supreme Court? It was a case that I was proud to lead a coalition of senators in filing an amicus brief before the Supreme Court in support of religious liberty. And it was a case that this week we won by a vote of 7-2. Now, virtually every media reporter, virtually every Democrat, although I repeat myself, they all immediately, did you notice all the press coverage said what a narrow decision it was? The talking points went out. Every tweet, every headline, narrow, 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 very, very narrow. All right, I may not be great at math, but 7-2, is 7 more or less than half of 9? Boy, the reporters were over time. It's so narrow. Yeah, you had a couple of Democratic appointments who said, and they say it's narrow because the decision was based on the facts. Well, I'll tell you, the facts of the case. The so-called Colorado Civil Rights Commission demonstrated an antipathy, an animosity to faith that was visceral. And by a 7-2 vote, the court said the government cannot treat people of faith as disfavored citizens. You cannot discriminate against religious faith. That is not narrow. That is a bedrock principle of our First Amendment and of our nation.
Right of religious liberty.
A second victory concerns life. Men and women here, you have devoted your lives to defending human life, to defending innocent life, every life, as a precious gift from God that deserves to be protected from the moment of conception until the moment of natural death. Well, we have seen in the last year and a half significant victories preserving innocent life. The very beginning of the Trump administration, we saw a return to the Mexico City rules, which means that our foreign aid will no longer be used to fund abortions overseas. We saw the administration pull out of funding the UN Population Fund, which was complicit in China's horrific practices of forced sterilizations and forced abortions. And we saw HHS issue new rules, returning to the old rules, prohibiting taxpayer funding from going to Planned Parenthood in clinics that provide abortions. And not only that, we saw the administration rescind the abhorrent so-called contraceptive mandate in Obamacare. A mandate that was interpreted by the Obama administration to force, or to try to force, believers to fund abortion-inducing drugs. The consequences of that decision is that the litigation against the Little Sisters of the Poor has been dismissed.
Now, could you imagine this? They actually tried to get religious organizations to fund abortion medicine for people. So if you have a religious hospital, you must fund abortion for that hospital, even though it's against your religion. And they actually took religions to court for that. This is the Obama people are talking about. Well, the Trump administration stopped it, and all the cases were dismissed. What do you say? That is the Obama people say cared for them. But I want you to hear, you notice all the media give the impression that Obamacare, who wouldn't want Obamacare? Insurance for all, and that's how they're fooling people. But what they're not telling you, millions of people have been charged and funded, have been fined by the IRS because they couldn't put certain money for certain medical business. Millions of people. They didn't tell you that. They gave you the impression Obama was doing something so good. Not letting you know Obama was literally causing millions of people to lose billions of dollars by Obamacare. Watch this, let's go.
As I've said many, many times, the Obama administration was litigating against the Little Sisters of the Poor, trying to force nuns to pay for abortion-inducing drugs. As I've said many, many times, here's a really good rule of thumb. If you're litigating against nuns, you've probably done something wrong. It's a it's a wonderfly reliable checklist. Litigating against nuns. Yes, no. Stay on the yes side, or the no side of that ledger, rather. But those are tremendous victories. They're victories for protecting innocent life. Third major victory. It's the incredible tax cut we saw in December.
Hear about the tax cut now. Listen to this.
A tax cut, cutting taxes on small businesses, cutting taxes on farmers, cutting taxes on ranchers, cutting taxes on families, doubling the standard deduction. What does that mean? That for a couple, the standard deduction goes from $12,000 to $24,000.
So in other words, if $12,000 was taxable, now you have to reach $24,000 before it is taxable. What do you say? Amen. You put more money in people's hands. Amen.
That means next year, 90% of Americans will be able to fill out your taxes on a postcard. Now, personally, I think it should be 100%, and we ought to continue to a simple flat tax, and we...
Next year, 90% of Americans will be able to fill out their tax forms on a postcard. So little things they'll have to put there now. Do you know what? They're getting millions back into their hands. Go ahead.
We should abolish the IRS. But 90% is a good start. Fourth major victory. We repealed the Obamacare individual mandate.
Listen to this, the Obamacare individual mandate. Listen to what Obama was doing to the same poor people that he claimed to.
That's a big deal. That's something I led the fight to do in the Senate. And I'll tell you, back in October, There were maybe a half dozen senators supporting us. Most of the conference said, look, we made a run at Obamacare twice. We came up short. Let's not muck up tax reform with Obamacare. And a handful of us began making the case, both publicly and privately, that this made sense, that it made sense for the 6.5 million people. Here's how the Obamacare individual mandate works. Every year, the IRS fines 6.5 million Americans because they can't afford health insurance. Of those, roughly 80% earn $50,000 a year or less.
So you can't afford health insurance, but it already have a higher premium to Obamacare. You can't afford it. Yet Obama get the IRS to fine people who can't pay. They can't pay, but they're fining you because they can't pay. So more than 6.5 million people every year have to pay a fine because they cannot afford health care insurance. That is ridiculous. If the people poor, then they can't pay. You want to fine them out and they get more poor? And that is the Obama who claims that he cares for people. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He is made by the media. But fact shows that he was just an illuminist destroying people. Let's see now.
Roughly 40% earn $25,000 a year or less. About 1 million are Texans. So I want you to imagine for a second, you're a single mom. You're working 2 jobs. You're struggling to make ends meet. You're trying to provide for your kids. You're not even making $25,000 a year doing that. And to add insult to injury, the IRS comes along and fines you because you can't afford to pay the premiums that have skyrocketed under Obamacare. It's one of the things that led Bill Clinton to describe Obamacare as the craziest thing in the world. About the only time in my life I've agreed with Bill Clinton. But we made the case that repealing the individual mandate is immediate and real tax relief for the 6.5 million people getting fined by the IRS under Obamacare. But it also provided the savings that is what enabled us to fund doubling the child tax credit and lowering the marginal rates on families across the country. And we went from in October having a half dozen senators supporting it to in December all 52 Republicans standing together and voting and repealing the individual mandate. Victory number 5. School choice. The amendment that I introduced on the tax bill became the only amendment actually adopted on the Senate floor. It took College 529 savings plans. Very, very popular tax advantage plans that you can save for your kids or grandkids to go to college. And it expanded them to cover K through 12 education, to cover public school, private school, religious school, parochial school. Your choice up to $10,000 per child per year.
What's that said?
Now there was some drama in this amendment. It came to a vote after midnight Friday night, early Saturday morning. It's clear it was going to be close. We had 52 Republicans in the Senate. Early on, 2 Republicans voted no. At that point, the Senate floor staff, they picked up the phone. They called the Vice President's office. Vice President wasn't in the Capitol at the time. He was at home. They said, Mr. Vice President, it looks like we may have a tie. We need you to come down to the Capitol. So the Vice President got in the motorcade, began heading down to the Capitol. I'm standing there trying to convince one of the Republicans who'd voted no to switch her vote. While I'm doing that, Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, walks behind me and votes yes. There's an audible gasp in the well of the Senate. Senate floor staff picks up the phone. They call the Vice President's office. They say, Mr. Vice President, turns out we don't need your vote. We just got Manchin. We don't need you here. So the Vice President turns the motorcade around, begins heading back home. Manchin returns to his desk, and a sea of Democrats descend upon him. They begin yelling at him. I think they actually pulled out a stick and began beating him with it. And about 5 minutes later, Manchin sheepishly walks to the front of the Senate and switches his vote to a no. So the Senate floor staff picks up the phone, calls the Vice President's office. They said, Mr. Vice President, we need you after all. It's about 15 minutes from the Naval Observatory to the Capitol. Vice President turns around his motorcade a second time, and 15 minutes later, the Vice President walks onto the floor of the Senate. He says, the ayes being 50, the nays being 50, the Senate being equally divided, the presiding officer votes in the affirmative. The amendment is adopted. And with that, we saw the most far-reaching federal school choice legislation that has ever passed come into law, providing potentially benefits to up to 50 million school kids across the country, enabling parents and grandparents to save for your kids, to save for your grandkids, and to choose the best educational options for them.
You know what these funds are? For you to get money to send your children to whatever school you choose, and you're getting a $10,000 help. And the Democrats didn't want people to get that. They voted against it. And the media always telling you they care for people. That's why I try to tell you, don't let the media fool you. They'll be like, it is the Republicans that voted yesterday to get it. And I had to call the Vice President to come from his home and vote. Even though a Democrat recognized it was a good thing to do, and he came and said, when the others finished with him, he changed his vote. And so the Vice President had to come and vote in favor of it. So they are showing you us, you Christians, this is what we have done for you. Vote for us, therefore. Do you get the idea? Now let's just go to the next video. We will continue. Go to the next one quickly.
After the death of Billy Graham, Vice President Mike Pence reminded CPAC attendees of Graham's speech at the National Cathedral after the 9/11 terror attacks. Mike Pence called on the crowd to reconnect with one another, with our communities, in days ahead and in these challenging times, to reconnect to something deeper, something that speaks to the very heart of who we are. The Vice President called Graham one of the greatest Americans of the past century, prompting applause from the audience. Graham's ministry was to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ, a ministry that Pence remarked changed millions. Shortly after the Islamic terror attacks on 9/11, 2001, that killed thousands of Americans, Graham spoke at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. Pence, at the time a first-term member of Congress, recalled the event for the crowd. I'll never forget what he said. On that day, Billy Graham said to the American people, "The spirit of this nation will not be defeated," but he admonished Americans to, in his words, come together and confess our need for God. He said, we've always needed God from the beginning of this nation, but today we need Him especially. And he reminded us that the Bible says God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. The Vice President espoused his faith in the boundless capacity of the American people, the President, and leaders they have elected, and that other kinds of faith, what Billy Graham called hope for the present and hope for the future. In the days ahead, as we work to advance our cause, restore our country, let us also remember to claim that hope, he continued before paraphrasing 2 Chronicles 7:14 from the Bible. If his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he will hear from heaven and he will heal this land, Pence said as the crowd began to clap, then rise to their feet as he continued, this one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. While it is good to call people to Christ and to turn from their wicked ways, there is a difference between it being done by a pastor and a vice president. Mr. Pence, in his official capacity as Vice President of the United States, is not wrong in his assessment. Yet the underlying trend is concerning. At some point, when there's been enough pressure from relentless disasters and other crises, the American people, prompted by their leaders, both religious and civil, will demand that the nation get back to God, a legal pressure that will drive Sunday worship laws. Even in free America, rulers and legislators, in order to secure public favor, will yield to the popular demand for a law enforcing Sunday observance. That's The Great Controversy, page 592. It will all seem so right Yet the solution to enforce a day of worship contrary to the law of God will be so wrong.
Evangelicals are starting to help the government. That's what this one is showing, okay? This is Mike Pence, the Vice President, and he's talking to them, and they're starting to help the government. Let's go to the next one. Watch this one.
What a privilege it is to report today on the 31st of October 2017 from the Pashkov House, which is just next to the Kremlin here in Moscow. October 31, all of you should know what that is because it is the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. On this very day, 500 years ago, in 1517, Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses or proclamations to the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg in Germany. And friends, it is a privilege to be at this very special event.
Уважаемые гости, друзья, для меня преимущество и честь быть на этом торжественном событии.
Let me help you interpret what you're looking at. You're looking at a marriage between the Catholic Church and the Protestants that will work together. In other words, in this special meeting in Moscow, even the Catholic Church was invited to celebrate the Protestant Reformation because they know that there's no longer anyone Protestant. And who showed up also? The Adventist Church, the president of the Seventh-day Adventist General Conference. So this is showing the marriage taking place between the Catholic Church and the apostate Protestants. So remember, they must work together. In a while I will show you something. They must work together. So let's see the marriage.
Dear guests, relatives, and friends, we are here and now to witness marriage of this wonderful couple. At this solemn hour, the papal Rome and the Church unites before the Lord in the sacred union. Before we proceed to the wedding ceremony, I want to ask if someone knows the reason why these two cannot be together. Let him say now or never. Hello, Martin. I was waiting for you. Please, come in. I'm very glad that you have come. Finally, we can talk.
Thank you for the invitation. I accept my heartfelt congratulations on the upcoming wedding.
Thank you, my friend.
I must admit, I was very surprised when I heard about the wedding. Well, who would have thought that you and the Protestant Church, you were united? I remember you did not get along very well. You used to live like a cat with a dog.
Oh, this is the whole ecumenical movement. There is no more room for disagreement in our relationships. We work together to achieve a common goal. And this goal is the peace and prosperity of all mankind.
Sounds great. Unity and so on, but eliminate all the differences? Did you really get it? Did you agree to a compromise and decide to go meet her?
Well, you can say so. I apologize for everything I did. Not this way. And he offered her his stability and confidence in tomorrow's day. Besides, I'm ready to give her more freedom.
What you say sounds good, but let's get to the point. But what about your teaching? Something has changed?
You see, the old tree is not transplanted, but she, young and ready for change. This is what helps us be together.
So no compromises. I'm not sure who you are anymore. In fact, an old tree or a wolf in sheep's clothing skin. Everything I see is just a mask.
Martin, my friend, listen. I thought a lot about all this. I know the Protestant church is like a daughter to you, but this wedding is our chance to establish peace in everything in this world. You just have to support me. Together, we can rule this world. Of course, for the benefit of all living in it, and at the time of our rule at last. Long-awaited peace.
That is, you want me to renounce the truth for the sake of questionable world? I cannot do it. My foundation is the Bible and only the Bible.
Yes, of course. Only the Bible. Only God's glory. Yes. Not be a backward heretic. The world has long outgrown these mistakes. Over 500 years. A lot has changed. Experience is what is really important today, not absolute teachings.
Perhaps for 500 years much has changed, but the eternal God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Time does not make truth a lie. Reformation was inevitable because your church spread doctrine not based on the Bible, and today you continue to do the same. How can you promise the Protestant church peace? You want to walk together in life without having nothing in common. I'm sorry, but I cannot bless this marriage. You're gonna break her heart.
But we have in common. We serve the same God. We have one Lord.
Jesus said, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but fulfilling the will of my Father in heaven." Thank you for being willing to share all the glory with me. Peace and reign in it. But I want to wait more for the kingdom of heaven. Only it will be a real peace. By the way, talking about the world, and what about those who are against unity?
I think it's very late for such conversations. I still have to prepare for the wedding. Please, excuse me. Dear brothers and sisters, we can resolve all our differences in heaven. Let all the protests remain in the past. It's time for unity. Before we proceed to the wedding ceremony, I want to ask if someone knows the reason why these two cannot be together. Let him say now or never.
Favorite daughter, I'm writing this letter to you because I'm unbearable. It hurts to see you unhappy again. He has not changed. Remember what price was paid for your freedom. I beg you, wake up before it's too late.
On behalf of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I would like to thank the President of this country and the government for religious liberty.
От имени Церкви Адвентиста Седьмого дня хочу выразить благодарность президенту России и правительству этой страны за сохранение религиозной свободы.
It gives us the opportunity of holding this event today.
Это дает нам возможность и это событие проводить сегодня. Спасибо.
Watch. And then this representative. So then I hope you get the idea here, right? Okay. Watch me. You need to see this. Do you know in Latin America now, the Catholic Church and the Protestants are united together, married, and they are fighting to literally take power over governments. Literally going on. In fact, it was an evangelical pastor that almost became president of Costa Rica, losing by very few votes, when we know they cheated. But it was an evangelical pastor that should be the president of Costa Rica today. So they're taking over. Changes are taking place now before the mark of the beast is enforced.
Evangelical churches today can be found in almost every neighborhood in Latin America, and they're transforming politics like no other force. They're giving conservative causes and Catholic causes, and especially political parties, new strength and new constituencies. In Latin America, Christianity used to be associated with Roman Catholicism. The church had a near monopoly on religion until the 1980s. The only challenge to Catholicism was anti-clericalism and atheism. There has never been another religion until now. Evangelical pastors embrace varied ideologies, but when it comes to gender and sexuality, their values are typically conservative. They expect women to be completely submissive to their evangelical husbands, and in every country in the region, they have taken the strongest stands against gay rights. Evangelicals, who account for almost 20% of the population in Latin America, are fueling a new form of populism. They are supplying conservative parties with non-elite voters and tend to vote conservative on key issues of sexuality, family, etc. Brazil is a prime example of the rising evangelical power in Latin America. The 90 or so evangelical members of Congress have thwarted LGBT-oriented legislative actions, played a role in impeaching the leftist President Dilma Rousseff, and have made their voice heard on other conservative issues. An evangelical pastor has been elected mayor of Rio de Janeiro, one of the world's most gay-friendly cities. So grand are their successes that evangelical pastors elsewhere say they want to imitate the Brazilian model. And that model is spreading. With the help of Catholics, evangelicals have also organized anti-gay marches in Colombia, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Peru, and Mexico. In Paraguay and Colombia, they compelled the ministries of education to ban books dealing with some types of sexuality. In Colombia, they even mobilized to defeat a referendum on a peace accord with the FARC, F-A-R-C, the largest guerrilla group in Latin America, arguing that the accords pushed feminism and LGBT rights too far. How have evangelicals become so politically powerful? The answer has to do with their new political tactics. And no tactic has been more transformative than the decision by evangelicals to forge alliances with political parties on the right. Historically, right-wing parties in Latin America tended to gravitate toward the Catholic Church and disdain Protestantism. And while evangelicals stayed out of politics, not anymore. Conservative parties, mostly Catholic, and evangelicals are joining forces. Chile's presidential election in 2017 provided a perfect example of this union of pastors and party. The two center-right candidates, Sebastián Piñera and José Antonio Cast, courted evangelicals. Mr. Piñera, who won, even had 4 evangelical bishops as campaign advisors. There is a reason conservative politicians are embracing conservative evangelicalism. Evangelicals are solving the most serious political handicap that right-wing parties have in Latin America, their lack of ties with non-elites. As the political scientist Ed Gibson noted, parties of the right used to draw their core constituency from the upper strata. This made them electorally weak. But evangelicals are changing that. They're bringing in voters from all walks of life, but mostly the poor. They're turning right-wing parties into people's parties. This marriage of pastors and parties is not a Latin American invention. It's been happening in the United States since the 1980s, as the Christian right gradually became arguably the most reliable constituency in the Republican Party. And there is convergence between the United States and Latin America on evangelical politics, and it is no accident. American evangelicals who have been learning their lessons from Roman Catholics coach their counterparts in Latin America on how to court parties, become lobbyists, and fight gay marriage. Few other civic groups enjoy stronger external ties. In addition to forming alliances with parties, Latin American evangelicals have learned to make peace with their historic rival, the Catholic Church. At least on the issue of sexuality, pastors and priests have found new common ground. Perhaps the Latin American Catholic Church realized that they would have to engage evangelicals in common causes if they were going to achieve their own goals of political power. The latest example of cooperation has been framing the language political actors use to describe their causes for multiple constituencies and thereby more powerfully influence politics. In Latin America, both Catholic and evangelical clergymen have used the ideology of gender, in quotes, to frame their political platform. This term is used to oppose efforts to promote the homosexual and transgender agenda. Evangelical and Catholic clergies simply say this is just theology, not science. Evangelicals stress the word ideology because they are trying to protect themselves, and especially their children, from exposure to these ideas. The political beauty of the term ideology of gender is that it has given clergymen a way to recast their religious stand in secular terms as parents' rights. In Latin America, the new Christian slogan is, "Don't mess with my kids." It's one of the results of this evangelical Catholic collaboration. Politically, we may be witnessing a historic truce between Protestants and Catholics in the region. Evangelicals agree to embrace the Catholic Church's strong condemnation of abortion. The Catholic Church embraces evangelicals' strong condemnation of sexual diversity, and together they confront rising secularism. This truce poses a dilemma for Pope Francis. On the one hand, he reaches out to modern and liberal groups, while on the other, he is dedicated to ecumenical engagement. As a political actor, the Pope worries about the Church's waning influence in politics. So an alliance with evangelicals seems like a perfect antidote against papal political decline. Evangelicalism is transforming parties and possibly the Catholic Church. Conservative, mostly Catholic parties used to think of themselves as the region's essential check against populism. That pitch is no longer credible. These parties are realizing that going along with pastors generates voter excitement, even if only among churchgoers. And excitement equals power. The pattern is the same in the United States. Evangelicals and Catholics work together to achieve common political goals. Rome adjusts its strategy that will best achieve its purposes, particularly politically and religious purposes. Latin American evangelicals, which are mostly Pentecostal, were once opposed to Catholicism. Now the Catholic Church has adopted them as colleagues in the cultural war. The ecumenical collaboration in the United States is being buttressed by similar collaboration in Latin America. The result will be the same. When the churches of our land, uniting upon such points of faith as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and sustain their institutions, then will Protestant America have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy. That's the Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, page 277. The White House has not continued the faith-based office that has been maintained by previous administrations. Johnny Moore, one of Mr. Trump's advisors, clarified that there is no longer a formal Evangelical Advisory Council, which was part of the election campaign in 2016. Moore's relationship is informal, interacting sometimes daily with the administration, he said, and about every 4 to 6 weeks directly with the president. Based on my experience, this White House doesn't need to have a faith-based office in order to have positive, open, and productive relationships with the faith-based community, Moore said. The issues discussed range from the obvious, religious liberty and the sanctity of life, to the less obvious, paid family leave and criminal justice reform, he said. Last fall, President Trump issued an executive order renewing faith advisory councils for agencies such as the Department of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services. But he did not renew the White House Advisory Council on Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, launched in the George W. Bush administration and extended in 2009 by President Barack Obama. Moore said that while the formal office served the purpose of outreach, it had another purpose: to keep the faith-based community out of the West Wing. Moore added, "This is an administration that wants our community not down the road meeting with staffers, but actually in the heart of the conversation," Moore said. He said he personally has been in substantive meetings in the White House with a cumulative total of about 500 religious leaders. "I'm not sure that many of these offices, over the course of previous administrations, have had so many meaningful and substantive interactions with religious leaders," said Moore. Just because the infrastructure is different, it doesn't mean the quality of the relationship is different. And on the contrary, it's actually better, he said. Last fall, the progressive website Think Progress expressed concern that the faith baked into the Trump administration appears to be mostly of one flavor: conservative Christian. The website noted cabinet members regularly attend a Bible study with Vice President Mike Pence, and it named members known for preaching right-wing Christian positions, including EPA Secretary Scott Pruitt, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Moore said that the White House interacts with people of a variety of streams of Christianity and other faiths, including Catholic and Jewish leaders from various traditions. "One of the many things I like about this White House is that they are more reliant on their relationship with regular everyday Americans and less reliant on the formal infrastructure of government," Moore said. "This White House has an open-door policy. These faith leaders have been able to come in and they push back on things and they leave. And they can say whatever they want, whenever they want, and to whomever they want." Moore acknowledged that the cabinet is not only sympathetic to people of faith, it's a cabinet filled with people of faith. "This is a White House of leaders that pray together," he said. "It's not uncommon at all for meetings to begin with prayer." There are probably more evangelical believers in the cabinet than in any previous administration, he said, including President Reagan's. In previous administrations, when evangelicals talked to the White House, there would be an issue of translation, he said. That's not the case at all here, and it's not just the president and the vice president, or even the cabinet. It goes really, really deep into the government. There are more deeply committed believers in various positions from the bottom to the top, he said. Moore emphasized it isn't necessary to have a faith office to deal with policy that intersects with the faith community. There are probably more government-faith partnerships going on than ever before. It's just not being funneled through one office. Moore also said that often when the other leaders go to the White House with senior staff and Mr. Trump finds out they're on the property, the president will seek them out. "Those are incidents when we have prayed for him and for his administration," Moore said. Not to mention that we have a lot of reasons to be incredibly grateful for the promises Trump has made and fulfilled. Astonishing achievements in the first year when it comes to religious liberty and the courts and sanctity of human life and all these issues we care about. And while these religious and secular leaders have combined to accomplish some very good things, there are dangers to be considered. The foundation is being laid for this extreme development. In the last conflict, the Sabbath will be the special point of controversy throughout all Christendom. Secular rulers and religious leaders will unite to enforce the observance of the Sunday. That's the Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, page 444.
The last clip.
And today we are launching another historic action to promote religious freedom. I will soon be signing an executive order to create a faith initiative at the White House. The Faith Initiative will help design new policies that recognize the vital role of faith in our families, our communities, and our great country. This office will also help ensure that faith-based organizations have equal access to government funding and the equal right to exercise their deeply held beliefs. We take this step because we know that in solving the many, many problems and our great challenges, faith is more powerful than government, and nothing is more powerful than God. That's fantastic.
So, brethren, sign and seal new faith initiative in the White House, where Christians will get what? Funding. Did you just see that, my dear brethren? You see, you have to know how far events have gone. Events have gone way ahead. We are facing a close problem that is going to be taking place here. Quickly watch this. What is the mark of the beast? We know one thing for sure. The mark of the beast belongs to the papal beast. Right? Hence it is called the mark of the beast. Right? We know that it is the papal beast because the number of its name is identified here. Go to chapter 13, Revelation, verse 18. We're close enough now. Chapter 13, verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that understand, that hath understanding, come the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man. And his number is how much? 666. Did you see that, my dear brethren? 600, 3 score and 6. Now quickly watch. 666 is the number of the name of the beast. Listen to me again. It is the number of the what? Name. Listen to me again. Let us look and see the number that it is. First of all, you need to understand the official name of the papacy, of the papal office, is Vicarius Filii Dei. It means what? Vicar of the Son of God. When you check that number in Latin, here the number V for 5, I for 1, C for 100, I for 1, the U which is V also for them. It's just how it is pronounced. For 5, in Filii, I for 1, L for 50, I for 1, I for 1, and Dei, D for 500, and I for 1. All of them together give us how much? 666, which is the number of his name, Vicar of the Son of God. Now the word vicar means what? Substitute Son of God. And that is the name of the papal beast. The name of the papal beast. Okay? Let me give you from Pope Stephen, which the sister quoted this morning, 752 to 757. I quote, as the blessed Peter is seen to have been constituted Vicar of the Son of God, Vicarius Filii Dei in Latin, on the earth, so the pontiff who are the representatives of that same chief of the apostles. So they have the name what? Vicarious Filii Dei. Again, the Pope styles himself Vicarious Filii Dei, that is, Vicar of the Son of God. That's the official name of the Pope. So whenever you see the Pope walking and saying, this Vicar of Christ, it just means he's substitute of Christ. But the word vicar means what? Substitute. Do we need a substitute for Christ? No. Yes, my dear. Because those letters in Latin were not used for numerical values. Only those that were used with numerical values are the ones that are here. So he meant nothing to the Latin. F-A-R-S. But the numbers that meant something is what we put here. And that comes up to how much? 666. That's the number of his name. So now quickly, what is the mark of the name of the beast? What is the mark of his name? Quickly turn to Revelation 14. Again. And we will look at verse 11. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast or his image, and whosoever receiveth the what? Mark of his name. So what is the mark of the name of the papacy? What is the mark of the papal beast? We do not have to guess. They tell us what is their mark. Are you hearing me? They tell us what is their mark. Let's quickly show you. Watch this. I quote from the Catholic Record of London, Ontario, Canada, September 1923. Here's what they tell us. Sunday is our mark of authority. The church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Letter from Cardinal Office, October the 22nd, 1895, by C.F. Thomas, Chancellor, quote, of course the Catholic Church claims that the change of the Sabbath was her act, and the act is a mark of her ecclesiastical power and authority in religious matters. One more quotation here. F.T. Enright, Redemption College, Kansas City. No. Keep the first day of the week and know the entire civilized world bows in reverent obedience to the command of the Holy Catholic Church. It is the mark of our authority to overrule God's law. So what is the mark of the papal beast? What is it? Quickly, everything is going back to how it was originally. Watch me. Catholic Herald. How Europeans are fighting back against Sunday trading. So they're showing you they are fighting back against Sunday trading. Listen, let me give you one story that happened here. Here is this woman. She has a husband. She has a 2-year-old son. So she's working for Calvin Klein. So she begged them to give her Sunday off to spend with her family. The location where she's working is already far away, and she's telling them she wants a little Sunday off to spend with her family. So what do? They transfer 30 miles away further. So what did she do? She went and get some chains and chain herself outside the store. And tell them she's not moving until they give her Sunday off. But the store started to get frightened because people don't want to buy there anymore. So they give her the Sunday off. What? Amen only in this sense. Amen only in this sense. It shows you Sunday is coming back. In fact, 2 new political parties together has formed the new government in Italy. They are populist movements. They already wrote a manifesto stating that they would bring back Sunday closing. That's what they already said. They just gained power 2 months ago in Italy. And they're saying they're going to stop Sunday trading. You must remember the Illuminists caused the government before, who was from the IMF, to stop them from going to their church meeting on Sundays by making Sunday a work day. This group fought against it and won power. So Sunday exaltation is being exalted, and many other parties here are finally decided. In fact, they're fighting against the European Union because the European Union wants to stop it. Let me just quote this next document here. Watch this next document. The National Catholic Register. Did you see it? Yeah. What do you call it? National Catholic Register. Here is it. Taking Sunday seriously. Poland leads the way. Now the Bible didn't tell you that a Sunday law will come first in Poland. But when we see the events coming, we know that there are foreshadows of it. So now they're telling people, follow Poland and create a Sunday law bill like Poland. And they're telling America, it's time for you to think about this. You see, it has now become back mainstream to follow Sunday. They are also telling you Sunday here is good for the family. They are also telling you Sunday here is good to stop crime. They are telling you clearly that it's time for America to go back to its history and find Sunday blue laws. This government, President Duda in Poland, has actually proposed of the whole year only 7 Sundays they can do trading on, of the whole year. The other Sundays, no. Go to church, spend time with your family. So instead of saying the Sabbath was made for that, they're exalting which day? Sunday. Here's what they say. When you induce people to stop going to church, it changes their decisions about risky behavior. Did you see that, my dear brethren? They're also telling us, listen to this. Here's what they're telling us. If people don't get at rest, their behavior becomes risky. And if their behavior becomes risky, crime. So they're telling people, go back to Sunday as a rest. And then they went so far. The courts have agreed with the church, with what the church has already taught, that the benefits of a day of rest are knowable through natural law. So they say through natural law, you need a day of rest. But they're not telling people it's a 7-day war. They're telling people, quote, unnecessary work, he said, should wait for another day. The day of the Lord is for our good, and it isn't meant to be a burden. By organizing the day around mass and enjoyment of community, Father Peckham said, people can build up the bonds between them and God, between family and friends, which is what God probably had in mind. Honoring the 3rd commandment. Do you see what Sunday is and the Lord that they have? Honoring the 3rd commandment also had a direct relation to their vocation as parents. He said, when you put God first, you have to transmit that knowledge and responsibility to your children, because your primary vocation as a parent is your moral formation. Brethren, what are they telling you and I? They're telling us that we need to exalt Sunday, because exalting Sunday, they are telling us, saves the family, stops crime. And this is spreading in different parts of the earth. They're already teaching people that. They're not telling them the 7th-day Sabbath, you know. They're telling them the first day of the week. So this is now becoming the new normal. People are watching Poland and its Sunday laws, and they find it is working. Poland told them that we will let your shop open twice on a Sunday, and the rest of Sundays have it off. Then Poland right a law also stated, if you have a Sunday business and it's a family business, your workers must work on that day, but you, the family, can do it. And we're giving you, the family, certain hours to have it running. And people are watching at how the Polish law works, and they're telling America, if you want to do one, Poland's one is good. And we are being told Poland has gone back to God. And Poland already told the international bankers, to hell with you, we are forming a Christian civilization. Hungary also had enforced their Sunday law. They withdraw it and they only have it in a mild way. But Hungary also told the international bankers, away with you, we are creating a Christian civilization. The latest government to say they are bringing back Christianity by bringing back Sunday is Italy. So you see what's going on now. We are seeing foreshadows of the coming events. Amen? Foreshadows of the coming finalities. It's already operating. Sister? Next shot. Yes, sister.
It's just something else.
Shows
that a law that exists on the Trinidad Family Offenses laws, and it says Sunday employment or trade in general. It's an old law that exists in books, and I was going through some of the laws last week, and I came upon this one, Trinidad Family Offenses laws, and it says Sunday employment or trade in general, subject to the Customs Act. Any person who on a Sunday employs for hire any other person in any agricultural or manufacturing labor or employment, or any carting of or cooking of any goods, or any loading of any vessel, or any transshipping of any goods, or who on a Sunday after the hours of 9 o'clock in the morning sells or offers or exposes for sale in any public market any goods is liable to a fine of $200. I mean, there's just a Sunday law that existed. But it's still here, just it's not enforced.
It's not enforced. So we have it already there on the books. We just have to wait until the real events begin to take place and trouble is coming. But there ain't going to be no $200 fine this time. Now in closing, you know the scripture. The 7th-day Sabbath is a sign of these facts. The true God Yahweh. Amen. Verily my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign between you and me, that you may know that I am what? Yahweh your God. We are told to keep the 7th-day Sabbath, for in 6 days God what? Created the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that in them is. So the Sabbath is a sign that Yahweh is the Creator. And verily my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign between you and me, that you may know that I am Yahweh, your God, that doth what? Sanctify you. So the Sabbath is a sign that Yahweh is the what? Sanctifier. And finally, Jesus says, verily the Son of Man is Lord or Yahweh of the Sabbath day. So the Sabbath day is a sign of Jesus, the Son of Man. So not the first day of the week. Which one? The 7th day of the week. My dear brethren, taking these things into account, recognize that we are close to the end, even on the doors. Because the events are now becoming mainstream. And you will learn that Sunday exaltation is becoming mainstream. And you will see how it will affect people. So if you think you have a long, long time again, you have time to prepare. Amen. And pray to God in honesty. You dedicate yourself to preparing. Amen. In this church, we have dedicated ourselves to help as much as is possible. We will help as much as is possible. But you must choose to serve God. What do you say? Amen. So please let us start. This is what we're trying to let you know. The events are there in your horizon. What we have to do quickly. What do you say? Amen. We are asking you to dedicate yourself to the truths of Jesus Christ. Give yourself to Jesus Christ. Give yourself over to Christ. And let Christ use you as we prepare for the end. What do you say? Amen. So let us bow our heads and let us pray. Gracious loving Father, we thank you for all that you have shown us. We thank you for the light of truth that you have given to us, showing us how late these finalities are, that they are forming, that the way for them to come in is being formed right now while we are alive. We may not appreciate these events, but these events show what is coming and that it is soon to strike us. Help us to repent of our sins. Help us to believe the gospel. Help us to be dedicated to you. And help us to prepare, Father, for the end which is rapidly coming. Again, we thank you for loving us with these truths. In Jesus' holy name.